Three, two, one. Hey there, everybody. Pete Pardo here from Sea Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of Monday Night Must See TV with the Hudson Valley Squares. We've got in the house tonight Lynn Versace. What's up, Lynn?
Woo. Hey, hi.
He's feeling better than ever. We've got Grant Kickert, who I've just been alerted is going to be bourboning in place of Butch Jones tonight. There we go. We got Ryan Scott, who's not in the upper right-hand corner today.
Ooh, wow.
We've got Christian Canzaneri, who's our center square tonight. We've got Chris Allo, Sydney Taylor, and Spaghetti Lee. Welcome, everybody. So our topic for this evening, and this one was suggested by Mr. Scow. We're going memory lane. We're going way back in time to the first 5 albums we ever got. So either we spent our own money on, or we acquired via gift from mom and dad, or maybe we got in a trade. We traded some baseball cards for a record, or whatever it was. The first 5 albums we ever had. And we're all going to take you through these albums here. So we're going to start, we're going to go Lynn, Grant, Ryan, Chris, Sydney, Spaghetti, and myself. And we're going to each do one pick and go all the way around so we get to our last pick. So Lynn, what was the first album?
Oh, wait, so I'm just doing I'm just doing one around?
One at a time. Yeah, one at a time. We'll go all the way around.
Okay, cool.
Changing it up of late. So yeah.
What happened? So we're not sharing the story?
Yeah. You're going to tell the album you got and how you got it and what it meant to you.
No, but didn't you add something else to the list? I thought you had something else to the list.
Well, that was me. Don't even worry about that.
Oh, all right. I'm like, I don't know. Ever since I was in the hospital, I can't remember shit. Worse than ever. So it's like a case of the olds, and I'm fucked because my heart was messed up. So now it's like double shot, you know. So yeah, I wish I could say kickstart my heart since they just did that at the hospital. That would have been pretty cool. But I think that'll be my anthem going forward, you know. But my first album, because of I actually was roller skating, you know, and I was listening to disco and some rock and stuff, and then I heard Motley Crue. And I said, oh my God, who is this? And I think I was like 13 or maybe I was 12. I think I was 12. And some guy goes, it's Motley fucking Crue, man. And from that minute on, I was sold and I had to run out and get it. And it was Shout at the Devil. So ever since then, right, I got to hold up my little thingy here. I've been a Nicki fan. I got my little record, and Shout at the Devil is probably my first record rock record that I had to buy, or that I had to have.
Nicki's the most complex of the crew. That's
well, you know what? A lot of people don't like him for various reasons, but
he's awesome.
I fucking love him. I think he's a great writer. I think he's a great player, and you know, he just had a birthday. So happy birthday, Nicki.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm gonna go with Shout at the Devil as my number one.
Cool. And Michael, I know you're watching. I'll expect tomorrow morning in the takeaways, 2 minutes into the show, an F-bomb from Lynn, right? There you go. So,
well, that's only because they kickstarted my heart. So don't, you know. That's
okay. Well, that's fine. Right. We expect them, Lynn. We expect them. So
I'm sorry. I'm still an angel.
All right, Grant, what was the first album you ever got?
I'm going to skip and bypass Neil Diamond's 12 Greatest Hits, only because it was kind of more of a pressure buy for my parents. The first album I ever bought with my own money that was a rock album was Live Evil from Black Sabbath in LP. And I bought it. I knew who Black Sabbath was. I don't know if I could have identified the songs. I know it was like, in my opinion, at that time, it was very doom, like doomy metal at the time. But the album cover, which I still think is one of the greatest Sabbath album covers of all time. It pops. The artwork on it is just amazing. And I remember putting it on, and the album starts with the instrumental
NB 150.
Yeah, right. Which and it's live. And this is curious. I remember thinking at the time, not being much of like having any idea about production or album production. Good Lord, this mix sucks. This is so muddy. It was a really muddy mix. And then like years later, reading that, Ronnie James like went back into the studio again and like pumped up his vocals and cut them,
Or
pumped up
so
the
they
mid.
say. I don't know how true.
So they say.
Who
I
knows?
when you listen to the album, like it's a great live album, but the mix has that been remastered yet? I don't even know. Like if
Yeah.
that's ever been. It has. I don't even know how the remaster sounds. I'm only going on my 12-year-old brain, but I remember it's just funny that I think about it. I was like, this sounds like mud.
I
So
think the
that was my
Rhino.
first
Funny thing is, it sounds a hell of a lot better than Black Sabbath Live at Last, which came out.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
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 yeah.
totally,
Like-
totally.
100%.
The
Absolutely.
last Rhino re-release sounded pretty good.
Yeah.
Did it? I had to pick it up
Yeah.
then because I'm a huge fan of that album, and I remember the two things I loved, obviously, other than Ronnie James vocals in it, Sign of the Southern Cross, like live and stuff like that, was Vinny's drumming. I was like, oh man, this guy is like amazing. Like I could just feel the power in his kick and a double bass and fills and it. But the to me the bass, the guitar and the guitar was fuzz and mud, and the bass is fuzz and mud. But like I said, I haven't listened to that album quite a long time, so I got to give it a listen. But I just remember being like, 12 and being like, this doesn't sound very clear at all.
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised if you go check
Yeah.
out the master.
I gotta check it out.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as a first album goes, that's a pretty good one to have, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Cool. All right, Ryan.
All right, so I got Nick's picks here too, so I'll also throw that in. So, all right, I want to add two little quick ones in the beginning. So the first album, 'cause I remember this very well. The first album I remember listening to, like I put the record on, I put the needle down, I had this little Play School TV record player I got from Christmas at some point. It was Michael Jackson's Thriller, and I fucking loved it. And I must have been 6 or 7. I was really young. I stole the album out. So that I'll pass that. The first metal album I remember hearing, I was in study hall in 5th or 6th grade, and the kid had a Walkman, and he comes over and he's like, "Check this out." And he puts the headphones on, and it's this. And I was really young, and I'm like, "Man, what the fuck is that? I need more of this." And it wasn't the first Metallica album I bought. It wasn't one of the first 5 or 10 albums I bought, so I couldn't even include it. I don't know why I waited a while to get it. But this is the first time I heard a metal album, and I'm like, I remember that moment clear as day. I think I was in 5th grade. But I'll skip that. The first album I bought was I tried to remember the context of getting this. And as near as I can remember, this is going to sound silly in hindsight, but here we go. So I was born in 82. So in 1995, this movie came out, which in retrospect is shit, but whatever. It was the first Mortal Kombat movie for the video game Mortal Kombat. So I saw it when I was 12 or 13, loved it, got the soundtrack or heard the soundtrack at some point. I don't think I ever owned it, but the soundtrack had a song on it from this band. And I bought my mom bought me this album from, I want to say The Wiz. I think it was The Wiz. If I had to put money on it.
The Wiz in Middletown.
It was Nil by KMFDM. So this is about 1995 or 6. I was like 13 or so. I got this album, and man, this blew my mind. And it's kind of a metal album. It's like industrial metal.
Yeah.
It's like a little hodgepodge of different things, but it's really good. Still listen to it all the time. Love this band. Still my favorite album from them all these years later. And yeah, that's my first album I ever bought or ever was bought for me. I was young to have a job. So came at the end. And Nick's first pick, the first album that Nick ever bought, and said his mom bought this for him from Caldor in
Caldor.
Caldor, he grew up.
I love
Yeah.
Caldor.
Yeah.
I love
Nobody story
Caldor.
behind it. He just sent me the list and said, "My mom got these for me from Caldor," and the first one was Hysteria by Def Leppard. And Nick also told me, which I thought was funny, when I mentioned, the Metallica Michael Jackson thing, he's like, the first thing happened to me. This first album I distinctly remember listening to as a little kid and loving was Thriller by Michael Jackson when I was like 5, 6, 7 years old. So we got that in common.
That explains his
Nice.
lifelong love for Def Leppard. I mean, I've seen him firsthand at a Def Leppard concert, and now it all
He
makes sense.
likes him some Def Leppard. That is
All
true.
I was getting a little worried there for a minute because I thought like Steve Keeler was secretly here inside Ryan's phone for a couple minutes. Your microphone was doing all sorts of wacky things. I'm like,
Yeah, it was.
Keeler's trying to get us all back for last week, I think.
Oh, is it clear now? Or
It sounds much better now. It's like the first minute you were talking, I was like, ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was garbage. And the other dude sounded like he was on fucking stage at the Garden. What was up with that? His microphone was very echoey.
Who's that? Grant's?
Yeah, his microphone was echoey.
Really?
There was some echo, but now I don't hear it anymore. It seems like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I have hall reverb going through. I just bought a new reverb pedal, so
There you
I'm just
go.
kidding.
Run it through the
I'm
wah
just
wah.
right here. Yeah, exactly.
Nice.
This is actually shimmer. It's not a hall reverb, it's shimmer. So
Cool. All right, our center square, Mr. Canzoneri, what you got for us? I think I have a feeling what your first one might be.
I bet you don't.
You're probably right. It's probably not what I'm
I
expecting.
don't know. Yeah, I don't know if we ever talked about this one. I was really little, probably like 8. And I was at my cousin's house, and there were 3 brothers, my cousins. They were all a lot older than me. They had a huge collection of records. And my one cousin's like, listen, you can pick any record you want out of my collection and take it home with you. So I had no idea what I was doing, but I ended up grabbing 7 by Steppenwolf. The cover just like blew my mind. You know, these biker dudes and this like crazy sunset in the background and these freaking chrome skulls on the front. And I'm like, I want that. So I brought it home and threw it on my, Fisher Price record player. And I was like, yeah, this is pretty good. And I think my mom heard it once. There was a song on there called Ball Crusher. I thought it was funny. And mom didn't. So she took it away from me and said, I'm putting this in the attic until you're a little bit older. And I never saw it again.
Apparently you never got old enough for that,
I
right?
never got old enough. But
Wow.
I bought another copy a few years ago. I saw it in the store. I'm like, oh, I got to have this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was it.
Yeah, I do remember you telling me that story way back when. Yeah.
That's
That's a
funny.
good first record to have. Yeah.
It was cool.
I thought it came up in the Hollywood, the Hudson Valley Squares we did a few weeks ago on like what's considered metal or not metal, but we were talking about, I think, didn't someone mention Steppenwolf? Like we were kind of like, it was kind of like, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I did because
Proto
I was,
metal.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, like, yeah, because to me, they definitely had elements of metal with them. Like, they were a heavy band, super heavy band.
I
rock band, but
never
they had-
saw them as really heavy. I mean, definitely there was
Right.
some early hard rock going on there, but again,
Right.
we're talking late 60s. There really was no metal or even hard rock as far as like a term goes, but they had some rocking songs for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people give them an in just because of Born to Be Wild, right? Because that's like, heavy metal
Well,
thunder.
they-
it's the first time it's
Right.
actually
Coined the
made.
phrase, right?
Yeah,
Coined the
exactly.
phrase,
Yeah,
heavy metal
exactly.
thunder.
Yep. So cool. All right, Mr. Allo.
All right. You said first 5 records, so I took that literally because I am a guy, and if you want to give guys directions to other fucking things, you got to give it. You said first 5 records. My first record that I can remember, it's got a copyright of 74, 75, but I probably was 4 when I got this. I probably got it when it was brand new, and this is Batman, the Scarecrow's Mirage. From Power Records, man. These records were the shit. I loved them when I was a kid, and I played them all the time. In 1975, it was the Stone Age, so we had no cable or VCR or anything. So if you wanted to, watch an episode of Batman TV, you couldn't do it. This is as close as it came. So that was it.
Hey, I had The Hobbit on LP. Remember the animated hour? I think it was an hour, 2-hour-long Hobbit with Richard Boone playing
Rankin
Smog.
Bass.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, dude. Oh, that's all. Like, I would just keep putting the needle back on Richard Boone. You smell like a barrel rider,
Nice.
Oh man, I love that. And I had a Godzilla record that was pretty bad. They had the Godzilla, like it was like almost like a radio serial show, but it was on a record, and one side had one story, the other side had another story. The only thing that was really exciting about it was that the Godzilla roar was like the Toho Godzilla roar from like the early Toho movies.
Right.
But everything else was really cheap sounding.
Yeah, I love those Power Records, man.
Yeah.
Nice.
awesome.
And thanks for the lesson on men. I can use a little more of that.
No comment.
Chris likes to
Listen, My
take me
Little
really
Pony.
literal. So now, yeah.
Hey, you said the first 5 records.
I know.
Literal.
I know,
All right, men are very
did.
literal. Got
I
it.
did.
That's checked off my list.
Well, it's cool. We got someone who's going to talk about maybe non-musical stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I had,
Fucking with you.
Spider-Man. I probably have it here somewhere. The Spider-Man record. Do you guys remember the Spider-Man album with the death of Uncle Ben and had all the
Yeah.
musical score? That was
No.
amazing. I played
No, I
that
don't.
and that Hobbit album all the time. And another one, which I'm not going to bring up because I have a feeling Chris is going to talk about.
No.
Well, I want that Godzilla record now that Grant's talking about, so I'm gonna go look. I'm gonna look for that one online.
I'm gonna do a deep dive into Google and see if what was pressed. But I remember like the press date was like 1980, and it sounded like a radio, like a 1938 radio show, War of the Worlds. Like it was like, you know, it was just like they were telling the story. Then all of a sudden Godzilla would roar, you know, but then they would just keep describing the story, you know. Hey, Bess, stay away from his footprints. You know, it was like, crazy.
Chris, I'm amazed you don't have that already.
Yeah, that I don't. I definitely don't.
You
but
gotta take care of that because the
I've
curse.
got a lot of vintage
Well,
stuff. I'm gonna look for it now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the curse is real, folks. That it will happen. It will happen. All right, Sydney.
All right, cool. So the first album that I remember getting, I at a very young age was a huge David Bowie fan, and I became a big David Bowie fan because of the movie Labyrinth. My mom showed it to me when I was very young. Rented it and watched it, and I just was obsessed. And so he wrote all the songs for that movie, and so in turn I was just in love with David Bowie and would watch the movie nonstop. But that led to the first album that I got, and my parents, you know, at that point were very into, you know, paying attention to what I liked and what they thought I would like. And so instead of just having me stick with the Labyrinth soundtrack, they, you know, transitioned me into David Bowie's real catalog. And so they got me but it's basically David Bowie's greatest hits. And although it's a greatest hits, I chose this because this was, you know, the first album that I remember getting and was so influential to me. You know, when I would go to bed when I was little, very young, I would, you know, there was no TV in my room. There was nothing, you know, there was a dark, it was either the radio or nothing. And so I would listen to this. And so I learned all the words, and I think I was like the only 6-year-old who knew all the words to, you know, Space Oddity. But that's kind of what sparked my love for David Bowie. And this is still, you know, the original CD that I remember I got. Yeah, it's just been a very important album to me. So.
Ooh, nice.
Sid, I saw a shirt of David Bowie on Facebook, and I swear that it was an ad, and I thought of you. I was like, she's got to have that shirt. And then I refreshed my page, and then it went away. And I'm like, if I see that, I'm buying it for her.
It'll pop up tomorrow, Liz. Those things always come back.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, it
we're
was killer,
talking
but it was
about
like
it
a
right
button
now.
up. It wasn't a t-shirt, it was a button up. It was freaking awesome. I was like, I have to get that for her.
Yeah, they're listening in, so just
right
keep
now.
talking about it.
They're
Come back
listening
up.
right now.
I'm
That's what I was
serious.
gonna
I
say.
need it.
That's what
I
I was
need
gonna
it
say.
to come
100%.
back.
Listening.
Facebook
That's
knows
a
everything you
Christmas
do. That's
gift
right.
for
We're
me.
talking about it. We're all going to see it on our feed tomorrow.
Oh yeah, everybody's gonna get 100.
I hope you do. It's freaking awesome.
No, yeah, I want to see that. That's awesome.
Those Facebook ads are going to be the death of me, man. I just bought like all this hot sauce and pepper grinder stuff.
Well, you can talk about other things and other ads will come up.
Nah, it's crazy. It's crazy. Spaghetti Lee, welcome back to another show, my friend. What do you got for us?
Thank you for having me. Well, I was born with an advantage because I was born into an extremely musical household. My parents were record collectors just right out of the gate. So I was raised in a very musical household. In fact, I remember my father had a collection of strictly Motown 45s, and I mean 45s, a whole rack of just Motown 45s. So it was this wonderful atmosphere of music. So around the age of 10, I started to kind of deviate myself and accumulate my own collection. And I still have a memory, and it was great because my parents had cool taste. I mean, I had Beatles albums, Allman Brothers out, Jimi Hendrix, they had Vanilla Fudge. I have great memories of them having a great record collection. So it was kind of back and forth. Like I was born with a record collection. I distinctly remember my mother still coming to my room and asking for her Bob Seger night moves back. Sure, Mom, I have your Bob Seger night moves. I gave it back. But when I started to buy my own music, we're talking to date me somewhere in 1980, circa 80, 81, 82. I remember this distinctly in the record store, just looking at this display when this was new, and the album cover blew my mind, and I had to buy it. And that is Iron Maiden, The Number of the Beast. A 12-year-old me just staring in awe at this thing in the record store. And I quickly bought it. And then I quickly bought Killers and was a little confused because it didn't sound quite the same. Something sounded different. until I realized it's Deano. But Iron Maiden, Number of the Beast, 1982. I'm saving my first for last, and the first one I bought for last. And also in this era, Pete, you may recall there was a lot of bands who were putting out greatest hits packages, like double LPs. Black Sabbath, We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll, Leonard Skinner, Gold and Platinum, Rolling Stones, Hot Rocks. I bought a bunch of those too to fatten up my collection, but this one, really, I have a vivid memory of buying this when it first came out. It was awesome. It's great, right?
Yeah, that's a good way to start, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I've told the story before of my the first album I ever bought, but I'm going to tell it again for those of you who haven't seen it. So back when I was 10 years old, my parents took my brother and I was 4 years younger to their good friend's house for dinner. It was like a Saturday night. In fact, the house was right around the corner from where Mr. Canzaneri currently lives right now. And we went there for dinner, and their daughter was like a couple years older than me, maybe 3 or 4 years older than me. So after dinner, the parents, they're all hanging out, having a couple drinks, talking. They told the kids to go make yourself, go have some fun, whatever. So we went into her room, my brother and I, and she goes, "Oh, you got to hear this great new album that I just got." And she puts it on, and I'm looking at the LP, and it's these 4 dudes dressed up in makeup with platform boots and fire and explosions and all this kind of stuff. And she's playing the music, and I'm like, I'd never heard anything like before, because I'm used to hanging around the house. Dad's playing the Beatles, mom's playing Engelbert Humperdinck and Barry Manilow and all this kind of stuff. And we listen to AM radio, so I know all the pop stuff. I never heard anything like this band Kiss, right? But I love superheroes. I was a comic book collector. I love monster movies, and this to me was like the greatest thing I'd ever heard in my life. So Kiss Alive was the album. So I was like, I got to get this, right? So saving up my allowance money, right? Dad gave me like 50 cents a week or a buck a week, whatever it was. It wasn't much. So it took me a little while to save up some money. But then right around the time where I thought I had enough saved up, I saw an ad before I could buy anything. I saw an ad in the Times Herald Record for the brand new album from Kiss on sale at Caldor or Lloyd's department store. I don't even remember where the hell it was. $4.99 for Kiss Destroyer. So that is the one that I opted to buy first. So that was my first purchase, but I still, in the back of my mind, had another one that I had to get next. But I got this one first, and I admit this sounded a little different. It was a little more produced. Not that I knew what the hell that was all about at 10 years old, but I know it wasn't as raw and alive as the other one, but I loved it, and just started my lifelong, love for this band, and that would continue for a couple of years. More about that in a couple of minutes. Back to Lynn.
So yeah, you guys were talking about 45s. I did have 45s probably before I went out and bought my own records. Not that I got them, but Blondie, The Tide is High on my David Cassidy Victrola. That I used to play all the time, and it had a microphone, so I thought I was Blondie. I thought I was cool. I was like, I'm gonna be Blondie one day, and I sang all the wrong words, and I continue.
She still sings all the wrong words.
I do. Especially to Steely Dan, which I'm fucked up. I'm singing all the wrong words this whole, but why correct me now, right? They just sound so good the way they were. But much like Spaghetti, my second record was Iron Maiden Killers. And I fucking love that record so much that I actually ended up with a big, huge Iron Maiden Killers tapestry shortly thereafter on my wall. And it's funny because Chris Allo is good friends with my cousin Bill, who's a very big guy now, but we called him Little Bill. And I used to wrap the Killers tapestry around him and his sister in my basement. And they were like, what the hell is this? Because, 2 little kids seeing that for the first time. But Murders in the Rue Morgue, Wrathchild, I couldn't get enough of that record when I was young. And it's funny, I think, and I learned it from really my brother, who was a hockey player, and he had Iron Maiden, he had Eddie's picture on his helmet. And I just thought, that's really cool. What is that? I want that, whatever it is. And he was like, oh, it's Iron Maiden. And I was like, oh, that's it. I want this Iron Maiden. I don't know what you're talking about, And yeah, so Iron Maiden Killers. And again, I asked my kids if I should put it up in my room. And they think I'm crazy. They already think I'm a devil worshiper because, and you guys know, right? I'm big on crosses, Catholic and all that stuff. But My kids already think I'm a freak, but yeah, Iron Maiden Killers is where it's at for me. With my own money. Again, this is all with my own money because I had
Own money.
plenty of records before that, but this is with my own money.
Cool. All right, Grant, back to you.
I sidestepped a little bit. I actually bought my second album I bought after Live Evil, after I listened to Live Evil, and then put it back at the album cover thinking it was like really evil, I mellowed out a little bit and I bought the self-titled Cars. And I don't know why I bought it, except that I do remember this. I went to a high school dance as a grade schooler, like as an elementary school, kind of opened up to everyone. And there was a local band there called High Voltage. So just a little shout out to Dan Andershak, who at the time they were doing like Ozzy covers. If there's a pretty well-known SATO Ozzy tribute in the area, and it kind of like birthed from there. Phil, the singer, used to sing in High Voltage, and it was like my first rock experience, right? And I remember going to see the band in this grade school gymnasium, seeing a mixing board for the first time. Like, I was a weird kid. Like, I would go in and everyone was just like listening to the band. And I was like looking at like the mixing. I was 12. I'm looking at the mixing board and where the wires would run up to the PA speakers. And I was just like so into production at the time, like just trying to connect it all, right? But they played Let the Good Times Roll. And I was like, I loved this song. And I don't know how I found out that the Cars did it, but I went out immediately the next day and bought the Cars album. And I mean, to this day, it's a fantastic album. Todd Rundgren produced it. The keyboard sounds on it are all that back there. I mean, Greg Hawkes was like a huge influence on me. So it was just, kind of a really heavy album, especially when you consider where they went to after that, like Candy-O and Shake It Up and, the albums after that. They were just a really kind of cool, heavy new wave rock band,
Yeah, that album is just hit after hit after hit after hit.
Oh yeah.
It's
Moving
so
to Stereo is still like that sends chills up my
It's
arms.
still killer. Yeah.
And it's not because of Fast Times either. Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which I made the connection later on. Phoebe Cates. It was like every time I hear the song now, I'm thinking of like, yeah.
Everybody's been talking about Fast Times at Ridgemont High lately. I haven't seen it all over Facebook.
Greatest high school movie ever. Come
It's
on.
a great movie.
Certainly, there's nothing wrong with a little feast on our time. It's like the best line ever. I can't.
Don't worry, my dad's a TV repairman. He's got tools. He'll fix it. So quotable. So quotable.
That's great.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan.
All right. I don't sound like I'm still calling from the bottom of the ocean, do I?
No, you sound
No,
good.
no, you're good.
Okay. All right, good. So the second album, I was actually talking to Nick today. I was trying to figure out what led to me getting this because I don't really remember the circumstances of like, oh, I heard it and I had to just have it. It just like appeared in my life. It was one of those things, but it's probably the most, I don't know, probably the most important album I ever bought as far as like how my musical taste developed. Probably the reason I'm fucking All You Wonderful People right now is this album really like changed, like, okay, this is what I need to be about. I love this. This was my favorite band for many, many years. Still one of my favorite bands of all time. And that is fucking Slayer. And it was Seasons in the Abyss from their 1990 album. Somehow it was just the album I got. It's not even my favorite album from them anymore, but that doesn't matter. But I just somehow, I was probably 14, 15, I don't know, somewhere in that range. And I just happened, I got this album. I got it on CD because it was the 90s. Everything was on CD back then. And I don't know. I heard this and Slayer was my favorite band for years. I ended up getting Slayer shirts, Slayer albums, Slayer flags. It was kind of like known, I started like, I didn't really know a lot of people at first that were into metal where I grew up, but slowly, you wore a Slayer shirt around, people like, that guy, you kind of glom onto each other. And people just like knew me as that guy who fucking loves Slayer. And that was the thing for years, And you taste diversify a little bit, but for years I was like very single track mind about this. Like Slayer's the fucking greatest band on the planet. I want to listen to Slayer all the time. I don't give a fuck about anything else, which wasn't really true. But I was kind of like in public, I was just that guy for quite a few years. So it was definitely Slayer for me. This album, I heard this, the first song on this War Ensemble, which is one of their best songs. And it's like an artillery barrage. It's an explosion, very fast song. The first time I heard that, I'm just like, I think my face just melted. It was like that scene from Indiana Jones when they open up the Ark, and everybody's head just fucking dissolved. That was the effect Slayer had on me at that age. It was still on the sound. I can throw this on anytime. and it still hits me in that same spot it did years ago. So,
So I got to
Slayer-
ask you, seeing as you're
Yeah.
a little bit young, a bit younger than a few of us. So what was it like for you to start with Slayer with that album and then to go backwards and hear Rain and Blood for the first time?
Well, I'll tell you, even though this was the first one I bought, I think Rain and Blood was the second one I bought, and it was not long after. So maybe a couple months. I don't really remember the timeline. It wasn't one of my first albums, but I'm going to say it's hard to quantify this because even though this album I'd say is the most impactful because it's the first one that put me on that path. If I had to pick of all the thousands of albums I own, Rain and Blood is hands down the album I've heard the most. Like I would play that album every day over and over because it's only like 26 minutes. I'd play it over and over and over. I had the tape, the CD. I threw the tape on the car. Obviously, you remember the tape was the same album on both sides. So you can just flip the tape back and forth. I listened to that album until I couldn't. There was a period when I couldn't listen to Rain and Blood because I heard it so fucking much. And I literally made myself sick of it. So in a couple of years, I didn't really do a lot. And now I'm back in love with it again. But yeah, when I heard Rain and Blood, obviously like Angel of Death, first time I heard that, I'm like, what the, so that was it. Same reaction you might imagine most people had the first time they heard that album. It's it's unbelievable. It's so intense. That Rick Rubin production, they got rid of all the reverb, which I love. And first stuff in a much drier, fuller sound. You got Dave's drum kit having this big, bombastic, huge sound. The kick drums sounded massive. So that left a big impression on me too. So I used to listen to Rain and Blood until like the fucking wheels fell off. But I'm still going with this one is the most impactful because it's the album that got me into metal, basically.
Yeah,
And,
it's interesting talking to people who weren't getting into a band right at the beginning and listen to that trajectory leading up from in this instance,
Right.
Show No Mercy, Hell Awaits to Rain and Blood. I mean, Chris, you can probably relate, and I know Steve certainly can. So you get to hear them in real time as they're growing, whereas someone who gets into them much later because of their age or whatever, and they're going through the early part of the catalog in not chronologically, so to speak. So it's just interesting how
Well, it's like Sabbath for me and you. We weren't around in 1971 buying Sabbath records, so you're kind of jumping back and forth, hearing the different records, and oh, this is interesting.
Yeah,
the same thing.
But I've talked to a lot of people who their introduction to Sabbath was Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, and they will always hold those albums closer to their hearts than the early Sabbath, the Ozzy albums, right? So I guess you can pretty much say that about any band, though.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I owned all those Slayer albums within a year. I spent all my money on it, so I had them all pretty quickly. So I think between I think the last one I bought was at the time Diabolus hadn't come out. That was the next album, but the last one out was Divine Intervention, just by virtue of my age. That was the last one I bought. But yeah, I bought them all pretty quickly. But yeah. Hearing Rain and Blood for the first time really was that left an impression on me. That was a big deal.
Cool. And you got Nick's pick.
Oh yeah, so Nick's pick, which I'm sure some people like, but he was not as cool as Slayer, but whatever. Everybody has their thing. Was Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses, and his mom also
Pete's
bought that
favorite.
for him. Caldor. Yes, which I know Pete loves them. Yeah, Caldor was it's long gone now, but that was at a department store in this area. I don't even know if it was nationwide, but it was certainly in the Northeast back then. And I remember there was one in Middletown and on 211 there.
I used to buy albums there all the time because they were cheaper than anywhere else.
Yep.
Yeah, I remember going there. I was real fucking little when I went to Caldor. I rode the little thing out front where you put the quarter in and it goes back and forth. That was me when you guys were buying fucking Metallica. But, yeah.
Are you kidding me? I'm so short. I still ride those fucking things when I see them.
Hey, you know what? It's a good way to spend a quarter. Nothing fucking wrong with it.
I never rode them at Caldo's, only Play Talks.
Yeah.
My obviously I wasn't around then, but my parents and talked to me all the time about all of the albums that they would get there and everything. So it's been a very familiar name in my life.
Yeah, we had here in the Hudson, at least in Orange County, we had Caldor, Lloyd's,
yep.
James Way, Ames eventually after
Ames.
that, Book and
Kmart.
Record World,
Media Play, Kmart.
later on Media Play, Kmart, yep.
I
Record
remember
World was definitely one of my favorite. Yeah,
I was gonna say, I remember Caldor selling
Record City,
Wizard of Oz, and Diary of a Madman, and they were in these plastic sleeves, and it said contact associate. So like if you were a little kid, you weren't supposed to just grab it and buy it. But I do remember when I was a kid, and so to me that was so appealing. So after I got all the Sabbath stuff, I did get Blizzard of Oz and Diary, but I was like kind of bummed because I thought it was going to be like so graphic, and I was like, well, there's nothing wrong with this. There's no cursing. There's no
Just good
pictures of
music. That's all you get. Just
rods.
good
There's
music.
nothing. But for whatever reason, whoever stocked the Caldor by my house felt that maybe because the album covers Blizzard
Ozzy's
and
image.
Diary.
It was the
Yeah.
PMRC. It was pressure.
Ozzy's
This
at
was,
the
image,
this was
time.
too.
before then. This was
Oh,
before
was
then.
it? Okay.
Bats,
Oh,
yeah.
pigeons, and doves.
Ozzy was a
birds.
bad dude in the
Yeah.
80s. Ozzy, man, he had a bad reputation
Yeah.
back then.
Guy who bites the heads of bats, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Really? Who cares?
Horse piss, whatever.
But I mean, I don't think that's bad. I think it's just different.
Just
Well, it's bad for the bat.
Yeah,
It's
it
bad for
Oh.
the bat.
And the
That was
dove.
originally
But
alive.
Bat Lives Matter. I don't know.
back then you'd have the urban legends, right? So he bit the head off the bat. Like someone threw it on stage, he bit the head off the bat, but then he had to have like remember back in the days you
Rabies
really
shots.
scared of rabies shots.
Rabies
You had to
Yeah.
get like
Yeah,
18 of them, like and when you're a kid, you're like, I'm not gonna get shots, and you'd be like, oh my god, he had to get like 18 shots in the stomach. That guy is badass.
Well, pre-internet, right? You would hear all these stories.
Oh,
and
yeah.
before
Yeah.
it would
Oh.
change, and before you know it,
Legends.
there's
and
like a million
legends.
different stories about what happened. It's like, well, what really happened? Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Right.
Right.
Unless you were
I
there.
think,
Sharon.
I think he did bite the head off a dove in like a record company meeting or
Yeah.
something, and he was getting in a lot of trouble. I mean, he peed on the Alamo and
Yeah.
got like kicked out of Texas, and he was
He pissed
arrested
on a
in St.
conference
Louis
table
or
at a
something.
Yeah, he pissed on a conference table and
Yeah.
a bunch of CBS Jet record executives like whipped it out and just pissed all over the place. Yeah,
He was drunk all the time. Yeah.
right.
Who says that's bad?
Crazy Ozzy. I'm telling you. Can't take
Not
it.
just drunk either. Yeah.
That's
All right,
why
Cam.
I don't know.
That's rock
not to
and
get
roll.
not to get too deep in the weeds, but like a few weeks ago, and you saw that Rage Against the Machine brass tribute band, and the lead singer like urinated on stage
yeah.
on some guy's face.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah.
oh please, I grew up in the '80s. Come on, that's nothing. Everyone's all shocked. Oh my god.
That's rock and roll.
Come on, man.
Come
Iggy.
on. I've heard of
Iggy.
G.P. Allen. You're not gonna.
Yeah, Gigi Allen, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I mean, people.
Once you're blowing
Smashing
your
their
brother on
face.
stage, there's no going back.
I had a chance to go see Gigi Allen, and I had the presence of mind all the way back then to say no thanks. I'm not going. No. All right, I go to CBGBs. We're all good. I'm not going
You
to
need
go to that.
You need a
Not
bio
gonna go to-
suit. That's
I
why.
have my
yeah.
friend saying he's going to kill himself. We should go see that. I'm like, no. You go. I'm not going.
Oh man.
That's great.
All right, Cans, you're up.
Oh, you know that Caldors in Middletown used to be called Whites.
It did. Yes, indeed. Yep.
I have got a.
They had a
record
fire.
of this
Yeah.
house with a Whites price sticker on it, but
Wow.
not the one I'm going to talk about.
No.
Next album I got, my mom, who took away my Steppenwolf album, bought me Love Gun like 2 years later. So
She made up
That-
for it.
that was the first one that I still have that I remember getting. And, I mean, we've been through that, little kid listens to Kiss, it changes you forever.
Oh yeah.
I didn't listen to anything but Kiss for a long time after that, probably until, I think I was in third grade when I got that. I don't think I got another record until that wasn't Kiss for like 3 more years.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of us kind of fell into that. I mean, I branched out a little bit, but yeah, it was all about Kiss for a couple of years.
You didn't have a chance to hear anything but, what you owned. You certainly weren't hearing heavy music on the radio, at least not on my little AM, thing that I happen to own. So,
Nope.
Yeah, Love Gun.
Cool.
Wore the shit out of that one. I still have
And
it.
then
somewhere.
now I got
Oh,
that drum
intro.
solo. Now I got
Great.
that drum part in my head. Yes.
All right, Mr. Allo.
All right, so the Grant's record was I looked it up. Godzilla King of the Monsters, which was put out by Wonderland Records in 1977. It's got the cover from Godzilla #1 from Marvel Comics. So
Really?
That's
Wow.
it. And side one was okay, if I don't know if it's the same exact album, but I'm pretty sure it is. It took place in, all I remember was Miami Beach. Like he was out in the water and he was coming towards the beach and they had to send jets in to go blast him away. So maybe if you do a little more research, maybe like
Yeah,
the storyline.
well, yeah.
But side one was one story and side two was another
but
story.
it was
So
not
the
Power
Marvel
Records.
comic did place, all the stories took place in the States and not in Japan.
Right.
Well,
Right,
one
yeah.
was based on the comic.
Yeah,
Man, that is
I'm gonna
great.
look for it.
I feel
And apparently
validated now.
It was reissued in the late '90s on CD with bonus material. So yeah, well, I'm looking for it.
We know what you're
I
doing.
feel
We know
validated.
what you're doing.
Anyway, but that was Wonderland Records, not Power Records. My next records were these two Superman records from
Woo!
Power Records.
Nice.
They were more Superman stories. I listened to them, but not as much as Batman because Superman's not as cool as Batman.
That's right.
Yeah, that's it. I'll make it quick too because this show's going to be like 4 fucking hours. Unless we
I
hurry it
know,
up,
I was
people.
just thinking
So
that.
let's go. Not to pull a Steve Keeler, but let's move this shit along.
Chop, chop.
All right, Sydney, what do you got?
All right, cool. So, really quick, just like Spaghetti said, for me, it was a little bit different because, when I was growing up, my parents already had a really big, extensive music collection and CD collection. So, like at first, a lot of what I was listening to would just be me grabbing stuff from them and, whatever. And, my dad was very open and, willing to let me take CDs and whatever I wanted. But eventually I started to buy albums. But for me, primarily, it was vinyl records that I was buying. And that I still primarily collect more than I purchase regular CDs, which I still do, but it was vinyl first and primarily is. So I told the story before, so I'm going to make it quick. But the first album that I bought myself ever was School's Out, Alice Cooper. And I got this at Rock Fantasy, and I will forever say it, Steve, you just really undercharged me.
$2.99 special.
Yeah, I literally think I got it for like $5. It was like between $5 to $10. And so far in my 7 years of record collecting, I've never come across another one with the panties on it. So this is a first pressing. I've never seen another one, and Steve could have easily charged me like $150, $200 for this, but he charged me maybe $5. So Steve, sorry, but thanks. So that was the first one, and you're gonna see, like Chris, Aloe, I'm gonna be very just straightforward with all of my albums. A lot of them are Alice Cooper because when I was getting into buying my own records, I literally got all of Alice Cooper's catalog close to, the first albums I bought. So that's gonna be a trend we're gonna keep seeing. But
All right, cool.
Nice.
Nothing wrong with that. All right, Spaghetti.
So, speaking of music that you would never hear on the radio and developing an identity of my own away from my parents, it was clear that I was definitely going to get into heavy metal. And you got into heavy metal by, guys in the neighborhood, buddies that would say, check this out, check that out. And when I came across this record, Judas Priest, man, this was some heavy duty stuff for, the 10-year-old me. This was amazing. I love this album. It's still my favorite. I don't know, mostly for sentimental reasons, but I really, really love this record. And, yeah, man, what can you say? Judas Priest, British Steel.
That's right.
Killer.
Very cool. All right, my number 2, again, keeping with the Kiss theme, the next album I did get was the one that I heard first, which was Kiss Alive. And I remember I actually asked my dad, who was working in New York City at the time. He worked right around the corner from J&R Music World. For any of you New Yorkers, well, we're all New Yorkers, remember J&R Music World way back in the day. And I remember I saved up my allowance money again after Destroyer, and I gave him money, and he comes back that night. And he's like, I said, did you get the album? He goes, no, I didn't get the album. He goes, why? Because it was $7.99, not $4.99. It's like, but the Destroyer was $4.99. He goes, I think it's a double album. And I'm like, double albums or more? Yes. So I learned a lesson there at 10 years old. So I had to wait a couple more weeks because he wanted me to pay for it with my own money. But I did get that a couple weeks later.
Aw,
Better late than never, right? But you learn a
I
little
love
lesson.
it.
Single albums and double albums cost more money, people. So yeah, so that
I
was
love that.
That's great.
yeah, yeah. So back to Lynn.
That's such a good story.
Go ahead, Lynn. You're up.
Back to me. Oh, back to me. Sorry, I had like a senior moment or some shit. I don't know. So another record I got given to me, but it wasn't metal. So I'm gonna say my metal one. I have to laugh because I still can do the whole rap, but it's Sugar Hill Gang, Rapper's Delight. And you guys probably don't even know what the fuck that is.
No,
I do.
I think everybody knows
know
that.
the Godfather of
Still-
rap.
I can still do the whole rap. I know the whole thing. It's freaking amazing.
Sugar Hill's great. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
so
without
I
them, there would have
actually
been no
love-
Run DMC. Yeah,
I have that on
Right.
vinyl.
I have
Yeah.
it on vinyl still.
Long
It had
play.
the big blue album cover with the big thing. It was really awesome. So that was given to me by a cousin of mine. So that I didn't buy it, but that was my next record. But coupled to the one I was going to buy, Def Leppard, High and Dry. So yeah, I mean, who didn't fucking love that record, right? I mean, that was
awesome
like
record.
the
Yeah.
greatest record ever. I mean, for back then, you know. So, and I love Def Leppard. So yeah, Def Leppard, High and Dry was my number 3.
Cool. All right, Grant.
I'm gonna make this short and sweet because it's a
Yeah.
great seminal album. I mean, I think it was a summer camp, and a friend of mine, Chris Curry, said, oh yeah, Ozzy's, because I bet this time I'm listening to a lot of stuff. I just didn't own a lot of stuff. My friend Chris Curry's like, oh yeah, Ozzy's great and stuff like that. You gotta listen to this, and he turned me on to Moving Pictures from Rush. And I think the song that made me want to buy the album was Witch Hunt. Like, I listened to Witch Hunt and Camera Eye, and I was just like, oh, this is dark. I just and of course keyboards and synthesizers and dark riffs. And the funny thing is, like, YYZ and obviously Tom Sawyer, the big highlights from that album, but that's not what I was really turned on by. It was more like it was side 2, so
Underrated
Yep.
side. Yes, indeed.
that's good.
Cool. All right, Ryan, back to you.
All right, so this album, I think it's already been mentioned, but it's a classic, well loved, great cover, iconic. I remember bringing it home. I went into my room, I put it on, and I remember the first time I heard it. So it's the first time I heard the band, and I remember it like it's yesterday. The impact it left on me, and that's Number of the Beast. And the thing about this album that kind of stands out to me, other than it's one of the greatest albums of all time, is the cover. You have Eddie, and then he's doing the finger puppets on the devil, and then
Oh, yeah.
his finger puppets on a little Eddie. Well, I always thought in
Love
my
that.
mind that little Eddie has got his finger, his puppets on my wallet, because the amount of money I've spent to see this fucking band over the years, I think is well into the upper thousands and thousands, because I have to see them every time, 2 or 3 times a tour, best seats in the house, without question. It doesn't matter. It's like a compulsive. Iron Maiden's coming, got to see every tour date in the fucking Northeast, which I just did again. I spent several $100 to get tickets for the shows next year. Hopefully they happen. So yeah, I remember bringing this home, listening to this, put it on. The first song's obviously Invaders. I just like that moment is sealed in like wax in my brain. Just distinctly remember listening to this album and just loving the hell out of it. So Iron Maiden.
I'm glad you said that he had your fingers on your wallet, because I wasn't sure what he had. I wasn't sure what you were
No,
going to
it's my
say.
wallet. We're not going there.
Little Eddie has his
Wallet.
fingers on my, and then you paused and said wallet. I
Come
got a little
on, Lynn,
nervous.
keep it clean. Jeez.
Mind up
Me?
here. Mind
Keep
up
it
here.
clean.
I mean, she wants to know if Eddie was jerking you off.
Oh
Listen,
man.
I'm sorry. This is
I
rock
thought we
and
were
roll.
I thought we were taking the high road. We got through the panties with no distasteful jokes. Come on.
I'm not taking the high road. It's rock and roll. Get over it. I don't know
Although
what to tell you.
I do have one in the chamber if you guys want to go that way, but I'll hold on.
Nice.
Yeah. Listen, fire it up.
You got a Nick pick too for number 3?
Oh yeah, it was. Thanks for keep reminding me here. Nick's gonna be like, "You keep fucking forgetting me, asshole." It was. He's gonna watch this back and yell at me. It was Metallica and Justice for All, which is a great album. So once again, from Calidors, to the best of my knowledge,
There you
and
go.
it's a good album to have
Calidor
your mom
specials.
buy when you're a little kid. Mom comes home, here's Metallica. Okay, not bad.
Cool. All right, Cans.
All right, number 3. This is the first one I bought with my own money. $9 it cost me to buy Kiss Alive 2 at the Woolworths in the Orange Plaza.
Woolworths.
Woolworths, yes.
And then my mother was breaking my balls. She's like, $9? You want to spend all your $9 on this Kiss album? And I was like, yeah, duh. What else am I going to spend $9? So
You sure it was
Kiss
the
Alive-
$9 or that creepy looking guy with the blood dripping down his mouth from on the
Yeah, no, that cover was great. I mean, Mom bought Love Gun not knowing what she got me into, and then she saw that. She was like, oh, shit. Like, this is going to go live in the attic with Steppenwolf. And I was like, no.
My money this time, staying around.
$9. My $9.
Yeah.
I still have
Nice.
it. I've lost all the damn inside stuff. They used to give you all the order forms, and a Kiss album always had a bunch of extra shit in it back then.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, so Live
Those
2.
double albums went up a couple bucks since I bought mine.
Yeah, it was even now $9. Like I could buy that for like $8 now.
Well, that's what I was kind of thinking. Like that's
Yeah.
like such a popular record. You could probably find it used for a little less.
Yeah, probably.
Steve Keeler's probably got the $6.99 special sitting
Yeah.
right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I still, I guess I got jacked on it, but I mean, it's lasted me for since '78. So, it doesn't owe me anything now.
Yeah, you've gotten the $9 worth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, our other Chris, Mr. Allo. What do you got?
All right. 1977, I was 6. I saw a little movie called Star Wars. It blew my mind. So I got the story of Star Wars again because you couldn't go see the movie whenever you wanted because we were living in the prehistoric times. It had the dialogue and the sound effects and some of the music. So
I had this on cassette. This was awesome. They
Yeah,
never
I
did this
loved it.
again.
I
They
played
never-
it over
this-
and over again.
Over and over, right?
They
Yeah.
took literal clips from the
Oh, yeah.
movie along with the soundtrack, and they basically how much was how long was the album? 45
I mean,
minutes. 43
I always,
minutes?
as a kid, I thought it was a double album. I don't have the albums in here though, so maybe it
I
was
just had a single cassette.
Maybe it was a
So there's
single.
dialogue on that. There's
Oh
literal.
yeah,
No,
it's
there's clips from the movie. Like
Yeah.
like
Wow.
they took
it's full
they-
full dialogue
That's unique.
messages, but it's a little bit edited because they had to move the story
yeah.
along. But there is a narrator that will come in every so often and tell you what's
Oh,
going
that's
on.
cool.
But
My
it was
dad
really
bought that
cool.
on eBay.
I must have listened to it 1,000 times.
Same here.
So then I begged
Yeah.
my mom to get me and actually I have 2 of these because Christmas 1977 I took it to my grandmother's house and I was a fat kid and I slipped on the ice and I fell on it and I broke it in half.
Aw.
So my mom felt so bad she went and bought me another one. But then afterwards I begged her for the soundtrack album and I love my mom who's not watching, but her attention to detail is shit. Steve Keeler mentioned the Star Wars disco song on the last episode. So I begged my mom to get me the Star Wars soundtrack album, and she gets me the bullshit disco one, which sucked ass. So then eventually I did get the real thing. Although this one, I guess my mom made up for it because this is not my childhood copy. Like about 20 years ago, my mom found this at a tag sale for $1. But then when she told me and she gave it to me, I wanted to kill her because I'm like, wait, this is sealed. This has original 1977 air in it. I'm like, was there more of them? And she's like, she was afraid to tell me. The guy had a whole box of them. And I'm like, $1 a piece, Ma. I'm like,
Yeah.
I would have taken the whole box. She's like, I know, but you have so much stuff as it is. I figured I could get away with
That's
just
not an
giving you
excuse. You
just
can always
more.
do more.
I'm like, oh, sweet Jesus. So,
Sure, always blame the mother.
it's true. I say it to my mom all the time. So,
I had it on
Always the blame.
cassette. I had it on cassette, and I mean, like I said, they had like dialogue and soundtrack from the
Oh, the
movie. I don't
sound
know,
effects
They did
and
a great
everything.
job mixing everything.
Yeah.
And even at the end, like when the Death Star blows up, it is literally taken right from the film.
Yeah.
Like the explosion, the Ben Kenobi at the end, whispering to Luke, in the trench. They had all the cockpit dialogue going back and forth, right? The sound effects, everything.
yeah. I mean, for
Right.
everybody that's old, that was the only way to relive the movie. You couldn't just put it
Right.
on whenever you wanted.
Right.
Yeah, I waited until like 1983 until HBO finally put it on cable. And then I remember when The Empire Strikes Back came out, I was so excited about it. I immediately ran out and bought what I thought was that, but I wound up buying the soundtrack. They never put out something else like that again. They just had the John Williams soundtrack. That was it.
Right.
No dialogue. It was just,
Yeah.
you
Just
know,
the straight
yeah.
score.
yeah, I was like, what the hell is this crap?
And you know, if you were a Star Wars nerd like Chris and I
Ugh.
were when that film first came out, I saw that in the theater 7 times the year it came out, and then my parents bought me that album, and I must have listened to that like a million times.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like you just couldn't get enough Star Wars. Couldn't
I
get enough.
saw a double feature, Smoking the Bandit and Star Wars at the Warwick Drive-In in my pajamas
Wow.
in the station wagon. We
That's
turned the station
70s
wagon
right there.
backwards. We had the pillows in the back with the
Love that.
Nice.
double feature.
I was staying out with my brother and I was staying out with my aunt and uncle and cousins in Long Island for like a couple of weeks in the summer of it was the summer that Elvis died, right? So, and the day that he died, my aunt was like, okay, you guys want to go see Star Wars? And we're like, we've already seen it, but we'll go see it again. They hadn't seen it. So they take us to see Star Wars. I'd already seen it like 3-4 times. My brother and I totally get into it. I look over, my aunt and my 2 cousins are all sleeping next to me. And they're like, they hated it. And then driving home, we heard Elvis playing on the radio. And then, we get home, we watch the news and Elvis had died and everybody's all upset about Elvis. Meanwhile, I was like, but how cool was it to see Star Wars again? That was the highlight of the day.
Screw Elvis, man. We're talking Star Wars.
Oh
That
man,
Elvis.
that's
That
rough.
Elvis died. Star Wars.
That's all I could, I was like, all right, yeah, Elvis died, but
No, I'm with
Star
you, Pete.
Wars was great again, so yeah, cool. All right, Sydney, back to you.
All right, cool. So this record, like I said, there's a lot of Alice Cooper here, but it's true to my first 5 records that I bought. I bought this the same time that I bought Schools Out, and this is not as pristine a copy, unfortunately, as Schools Out, but I got a lot better and a lot pickier when it came to the condition of the records I bought as I got better at collecting. But this is not, kind of similar to what Ryan was saying about Slayer, this is not my favorite Alice Cooper solo record. If you know me, my favorites from the inside, but this was so just influential and so impactful to me when I was really getting into Alice. I love the stuff with the original band and his solo stuff probably evenly. It's really hard for me to pick one, but when I was first getting into Alice, his solo stuff was just really what stuck out to me personally the most. And this, I played this album to death. I got Schools Out and this at the same time, and I got my first turntable, and I would play this just over and over and over and over and over again. So this is the second one I bought by myself, and it's signed by him, as you can see. And yeah, so there we go.
Right.
Awesome. Spaghetti.
For those of us of a certain age can remember a time when Van Halen just ruled the world. They were just on top of everything. Lynn mentioned the roller rink. I remember Van Halen eruption at the roller rink. At the roller rink. So I'm going to have to say this was a monumental moment in my life. I mean, this band, this guitar playing just opened up the whole world. This thing is a monster. And
Amen.
I bought this right away, and I bought Van Halen 2 right away right around the same time, but that one first. And that album is incredible. Still to this day, I still listen to it. It's like a perfect record. So Van Halen, I'm dating myself because there's a small window in time when I started to accumulate my own records, and I got to bring up Van Halen, man. They ruled the world.
Hell yeah.
So
Good call.
Van Halen 1, definitely.
Spaghetti, which roller skating rink did you go to?
Levittown Roller Rink, Long Island.
Gotcha. Okay.
Hempstead
I
Turnpike.
forgot you were in Long Island for a while. Yeah. Then we had
Yeah.
one in Middletown here in the Hudson Valley. I don't even remember what it was called. Chris, you remember what it was called?
Easy Glider.
Nah, it was called something else before that.
Oh, there was
Oh, so-
Easy Glider was in New Windsor. Skate Town was in Middletown.
Skate Town,
Skate
that's the one.
Town. It was up on where Gold's used to be.
Yeah, by
Yeah, Cablevision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Easy Glider was better.
I don't know if I ever went to that one, but I went to.
Yeah.
I went to the
It
one-
was over by the movie theater in New Windsor.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
remember.
that's
Okay.
that strip mall. Yeah,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that.
yeah, yeah.
My roller rink was the Derby, where Splashdown is now in Fishkill.
Oh,
I remember that too.
That was the roller rink.
Wow, roller skating in the '80s, man.
Yeah, man.
Brings back memories.
I love roller skating. I'll go.
Spaghetti. We used to when I was
I'll do
going to
it.
the roller skating rink. Michael Jackson.
That's it. Me and Spaghetti are going roller skating.
Big hit, and I remember like roller skating around. Beat It came on, and we'd all be playing air guitar and stuff on our skates. It was totally ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to
Just
pick
I
up
love
girls,
it.
and we looked ridiculous.
yeah, and also there was we had some adult behaviors, smoking and drinking, like crazy. You can never get away with it these days.
No,
Literally.
no.
Yeah, yeah. All right, my next one here. I bought it for the next couple. I bought in my Kiss craze because I was buying some other things. I heard Jet Airliner on the radio. I loved it. Steve Miller Band, Book of Dreams. And I think initially I really just loved that album cover artwork because I mean, how cool is that Pegasus horse, right?
That's great.
Amazing. But it's a good album, good pop songs on here, some good
I
rockers.
like that record.
A lot of good synthesizers, good guitars. I still like it to this day. It's a really good album. Book of Dreams, huge album for them, and I had to have it. So that was my next pick. Back to Lynn.
Every time I hear Jet Airliner, I sing Big Old Jet and Lionel. So
course
now
you
you
do.
have to sing Jet and Lionel.
Jen and Lionel. Okay.
I don't know why. I just sing that way. I know the real words.
The book of lyrics
But now-
according to Lynn, right? Yes.
Well, I think I'm gonna have to write a book of lyrics according to me for sure. My fourth record was Twisted Sister. You Can't Stop Rock and Roll.
Good album.
Oh,
Twisted Effin' Sister. I mean, you know,
I love that song.
the
Just that
kids are
song.
back. You
I
put that on,
still
the kids
play
are
it.
back. It's like, are you kidding me? And not only that, so like I was young, my brother, they used to play at Ace in the Hole over here. And my brother was actually
Yeah.
good friends with Dee back in the day. And I was young. I was like 10 years old. And he'd be like, I gotta go get some. I don't know what he was getting, but he'd take me there. And they had the California bar, everybody's doing shots. Twisted Sister was playing, and it was fucking amazing. So I got that record. Kids are back, Can't Stop Rock and Roll. I mean, Dee is such a great showman. The band is killer. AJ, God rest his soul, on the drums, just amazing.
Yeah.
I still love him, right? Who doesn't?
Cool. All
So
right.
that
Grant,
was
back
my-
to you.
That was my record.
The next album, and it's funny that I remember all this because I mean I think I didn't buy a lot of albums at this period of my life. I was just kind of just accumulating, but definitely my next album was Pyromania. I think Photograph just broke, and the curious thing about Def Leppard was, you know, you're like, Def Leppard is that like Led Zeppelin, you know? And but then Photograph broke and it became a huge hit, and I bought the album, and the rest is history. And it's great album. And High and Dry, I went right out after that and bought High and Dry maybe about 2 or 3 months later. But
Oh, so you went back.
Pyromania,
Yeah.
that was my first real commercial, like I would say, hard rock album. Like after that, I got into like I wasn't into Maiden until Power Slave, but like I got into Judas Priest, and I got into like a bunch of other like metal and rock, like real rock stuff, where I just was like, yeah, I'm not gonna buy Men at Work. No, there's no way. You know what I mean?
Good choice.
I like
yeah,
Men
sure.
at Work. What's wrong with Men at Work?
I remember at the time, my friend Dave, I bought Pyromania. I was like, dude, you got to listen to this, right? And then he bought Cargo for Men at Work. I was like, dude, that is not cool at all.
You don't like Vegemite
I
sandwiches?
shamed him.
I mean, what
I
the fuck?
shamed him. I was like,
That was a
"Dude, that's
huge
not cool."
record, man. That was a successful album.
Yeah, well,
I had a
Which one,
copy. I
Pyromania or
made it-
Cargo?
No, the Men at Work. Men at
Both
Work.
of them.
Yeah, it was. I was like, oh, they got saxophone. Blah.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
God
no,
forbid
no
any albums have saxophone back then.
Saxophone.
No
Yeah.
saxophone. Jeez, one of mine has a clarinet. I hate to see what happened.
Well, now it's okay, but I'm talking to like a teenager back in the era.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
yeah,
Oh,
I was
yeah,
like-
yeah, yeah,
I was like,
Yeah.
dude, no.
Yeah. All right, Ryan, what do you got?
All right, so I had to grab something off the shelf here because this suddenly came to mind. So even though it's about 1997, so I was already listening to Slayer and stuff, and I remember this kid said, "You like Slayer? Check out this band." And this wasn't the one I bought, but it kind of led me down a path. And it's the first and last time I had a memory of hearing an album where I literally had no fucking idea what was going on. It made no sense to me, and it was kind of scary. Like it was crazy. I couldn't make out what was happening. Now I love it. I love the band. I love the style, but it was like a little bit much for that age. So the band, this album, which led me in that path, was Deicide. It was Serpents of the Light, which had just come out, and someone played the title track for me, and I'm like, I don't understand. This, it's like, obviously Deicide at the time was kind of like in the same vein as Slayer, but a lot faster and a lot crazier. Blast beats, deep vocals, all that stuff. So, but shortly after that, I did buy an album that was death metal, which kind of led me to now I have billions of death and black metal albums and all that stuff. But I don't remember how exactly I came across this band, but I bought this album and ended up The band was At the Gates, and it was their final album at the time. Slaughter of the Soul came out in 1995. So the earlier stuff was like straight up Swedish death metal from the early 90s. A little bit Byzantine guitars, a little weird, a little avant-garde for compared to other Swedish bands. But this one's much more stripped down, streamlined. A lot of Slayer riffs. Very catchy, very, very catchy for death metal, which is, I guess almost sing-along-y for death, which is weird for death metal. It's not a really sing-along genre like verse, chorus, verse. Doesn't really go that way. It's not how the songs are written. This album is about as much as that genre ever gets. So I bought this and I loved it. And I guess it was a good way to dip your toe in, because even though it's death metal, as those vocals, guitars, and everything, it's so catchy. It's so memorable. A lot of the Slayer riffs in there, a lot of old 80s thrash riffs. So it just kind of like, it's a good way to kind of sit down, dip one toe at a time and then a hot tub, instead of just jumping in. Where Deicide was like, whoop, nope, there's a little too much going on here. And then I came back around to it. And I'm like, wow, Deicide are actually fucking awesome for death metal. It's just very intense, But yeah, so my fourth one was Slaughter of the Soul by At the Gates. And that kind of led me in the path of getting really into black metal, death metal, a lot of the same stuff Nick's into, a lot of the more extreme metal. First European metal album I ever bought, so it kind of led me down that path. So this was like kind of opened a lot of those doors for me. Speaking of Nick, his fourth one, he told me was a compilation called Rising Metal, which I had never heard of. But I looked it up and he told me. So it had Overkill, Nuclear Assault, Heathen, Death Angel, Testament. So a lot of cool, slightly more underground 80s thrash bands, So I might even try to find a copy because it looked pretty cool. So yeah, Rising Metal and At the Gates.
Oh, yeah, I never heard of that compilation. Interesting.
Not me either until today, but it was pretty neat.
All right, Mr. Canzaneri.
Okay. This is the first album I got after my run of Kiss albums. It was when I was in 6th grade, and it's funny, Grant, you mentioned Chris Curry. His dad was my 6th grade teacher.
Yes.
So I was in his class when I got so many albums in 6th grade. It was a very big year for me.
Yes.
But first one I got was Led Zeppelin 2. My parents actually bought that one for me. But that's the story.
Good one.
What can I say about Led Zeppelin 2 that hasn't already been said?
John Bonham. Yeah, what else can you say?
I liked it a lot. There.
I remember Mr. Curry as well.
Yeah,
He's a
Mr.
great
Curry.
piano player, and he got me into keyboards. Like that was I think he bought, like, at the time, I don't know, somehow I thought he bought a synthesizer, and I was like, how did you, like, synthesizers at the time, like a Moog was like $4,000 back then, and I remember he bought something. It might have been like a Casio CZ101 or something like that, and I was just like amazed. It's funny because I'm a guitar player too, and like, but to find someone who was actually playing synthesizer stuff like in the early 80s was so unique that I was like, I was just,
Especially around here.
Yeah.
Yeah, the school didn't even own something, that you could.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Not at all. Cool. All right, Chris Allo.
That was 9.
There you
Solo
go.
album.
Holy shit.
Is that the soundtrack album?
Yeah, Grant mentioned this earlier. This is the double soundtrack album.
Yes.
It's only the John Williams score, but I totally dug it, and that was my 4th record.
We're channeling our childhood here. Like seriously, what's going on?
Pete said your five first records, so I listened.
I'm serious, and I remember
literal.
I got this as a gift. I didn't buy it. I got both as a gift, and I remember being so disappointed because there was no dialogue and there was no sound effects. And there was no There's no Darth Vader. It was like it was just music.
It's just the music.
Just music.
Growing up, I think we all were into that whole Star Wars kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, I was Princess Leia. Who the hell didn't want to be Princess Leia?
I was
back
more
then?
Close
I
Encounters.
didn't want to be
actually.
Princess Leia.
I was more Close Encounters. It was more closer to real life.
Close Encounters was fun, but it wasn't Star Wars.
Yeah.
I walked out on Close Encounters.
They didn't have
Did you
Hasbro.
really?
They didn't
I
have
was 7. I
Hasbro
fucking
figures
hated it 'cause
for
it was
Kenner.
boring shit.
Yeah, there was no Hasbro.
Or Kenner
Close
figures. Yeah.
Encounter.
And my mom's favorite movie back then was Alien. So when you guys were watching that, I was watching Alien over and over. Little
I
dog.
know,
Alien-
yeah. Star Wars
Listen,
was
I
Alien.
saw Alien in the theater in 1979. So
And I want to say that Kenner, Pete, you may remember this. I think Kenner had a like maybe an 18-inch alien doll where when you press the lever on the back, the jaws came
out.
Yeah.
I have four of
it
them.
was like, hey, here's a
Got four of
toy
them?
for your kids.
I always wanted them as a kid, but they were pulled from stores, so I
could
never
not
had
get
it as a
one. I
kid.
wanted one
As
too.
an
I could
adult,
not
I
get
wanted
one.
as a kid I wanted them and the Kiss Mego figures. So as an
Yes,
adult,
they
first
were
I got the
cool.
Kiss Mego figures, and then I thought it would be really cool to have the alien attacking Gene and Paul and the rest of Kiss. So then I kept buying more and more aliens. So now I have the 4 Kiss figures and the 4 Kenner aliens attacking.
Makes for a full-on battle, right? You know,
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you have the alien, the Kenner alien?
I have 4 of them.
man.
the 4 of them.
Oh my God, dude, you're my hero. You're my hero. Holy crap.
I
Do you have
have
a
some stuff.
Starbird?
Oh, the magazine? Yeah, of course. Dude.
No, not Starbird magazine.
Oh,
There was a toy
the,
that Milton Bradley
the
put
ship,
out, or
yeah, that had
the ship when you went.
that I didn't have. I didn't have.
People are gonna
that,
be like,
and I
"This
didn't-
show sucks." What are they talking about?
I didn't have Star Trek. Remember that? That was the rollable tank. I didn't have that either.
Yeah,
But that's because you couldn't put any figures in it. I thought as a kid, I thought that was kind of lame.
You could program it, and the thing would like move
Right.
like 7 feet, then turn and move 7 feet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boys will be boys.
Big track.
Big
track.
track. That was
You
it.
know,
Yeah.
Sid?
Yeah, I feel you.
Hey, I got all the Shogun Warriors. So
Uh-oh,
They
it's
can have
turned
like
into
a
a toy
room
show.
full of hot
Hold on.
chicks, naked women, and they have these goddamn figures and all this shit. And they're like, wow, here's my Kiss figures. There's chicks dancing. They don't care about the chicks. They care about the figures.
I have a
It's all the
Frankfurter
important
Zappa.
stuff, you know?
nice.
Yeah, oh, I know.
That's it.
Oh,
I just have a Frankfurter Zappa. That's all I have. A Frankfurter.
there you go.
Unbelievable.
Delicious.
All right. Sydney, what do you got?
All right. So after the first 3, it starts to get a little like difficult for me because I was buying a lot of records all at one time. So based on what I bought around the same time as those, I'm guesstimating that the next 2 are faithful to the order that I bought them. But this album was already mentioned. But Shout at the Devil, Motley Crue. I went to this record store in Kingston, Rocket Number 9. I think it's like right on the main street, like a little bit down from Rhino Records. And
Sweet.
he had all of the Motley Crue records, originals in essentially perfect condition. And so being a new collector, I bought them all up. But I chose this one because it's my favorite Motley Crue album. And it still has, this was before they took the pentagram off. So it still has the pentagram on the front, which I love. And yeah, so this was number 4, 4th album I bought.
Tell me you can still recite In the Beginning.
Oh, of course.
Fucking A. How cool is that? I
One
love
of the
that.
best. Seriously, it's a great album, but still one of the best intros on an
I
album
love it.
of that
I
era.
love
It's
it.
In the
great.
beginning,
Yeah.
going into Shout at the Devil, just
Yes.
like chills. Like,
Oh
still.
my God.
I know how you feel,
Totally.
Pete, but
I will have everybody know that I bought that the day it came out, just like everybody else did. So
That like I'm not a Motley. I'm with Pete. I'm in Pete's corner. I'm not a Motley Crue fan much at all. But I will say that Shout at the Devil's a
yeah,
great
I was a
album.
fan when it came
Yeah.
out. I lost interest
Yeah.
2 years later, but
Right.
I mean,
Whatever.
whatever.
Spaghetti, please go so we can stop talking about Motley Crue here.
Oh, all right. Well, all right. I actually have a confession. My next record is going to be Diary of a Madman. I got this when it first came out, and I have a confession. I'm not the world's biggest Ozzy solo fan. I'm just not. The first 2 are pretty good. But I listened to this record today all the way through, and I'm like embarrassed that I have not listened to this record. It was so good. I really, really like this record. I'm going to put this back into rotation. I have only like 40 years to catch up, man. I mean, I haven't listened to this. I haven't listened to this since the vinyl era, since it came out on CD. I'm not even sure how I have it in my collection. Had it on vinyl when it first came out, obviously, but I don't know. After thrash metal came around, like Ozzy, not big on Ozzy solo. But this album is awesome. Every track on it is awesome. I call into question the songwriting credits. I have a hard time thinking Ozzy wrote all this by himself. But
Right.
Because he didn't.
Absolutely not.
Bob
He
Daisley
did.
and Lee Kerslake wrote that whole.
Lee
Kerslake.
Kerslake, who he
Kerslake.
cheated out of publishing credits.
Daisley.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, Ozzy can barely speak English, and he's English. I don't get it.
And Randy Rhoads definitely has a major part.
Oh
in
yeah.
instrumentation of
Yeah,
that.
definitely big time, especially on the title track, Diary of a Madman. It's
Oh, yeah.
absolutely gorgeous, man.
Incredible.
Really, really cool.
That's a
So,
good-
full confession, I have some catching up to do. I will be putting this in heavy rotation for at least a week.
Yeah,
Diary
as
of
you
a
in
should.
my
Madman.
opinion, it's the best album he ever did. And I got to tell you, as like the years go on, I find that I listen to less and less Ozzy solo than ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
Two albums
That
I like
Sabbath.
a
album,
lot.
though.
Ozzy
I can
Sabbath.
I mean, yeah, Ozzy Sabbath is legendary. I just find like, other than like
Bark
maybe,
at
and
the
Bark at the
Moon.
Moon's fun, and there's a couple other albums that are pretty
Yeah.
good, but I just find that most of the catalog just hasn't aged well.
Has
Diary
anyone
does-
ever
Diary does stand up.
Duds.
has anyone ever heard the isolated, like, you know how they'll isolate like vocal tracks, like Stevie Wonder and like,
Yeah.
have anyone ever listened to isolated Ozzy tracks? It's just
No.
mind-numbing. It's just awful. Like just literally.
I don't think
'cause
we
he's-
want to.
I don't think
Yeah.
I want
No,
to.
Personally, for me, maybe I don't know. I listen to Ozzy solo very frequently. It's right up there for me.
I mean, I love him, but it's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a time in all of our lives that he was great and he was really cool, and
Yes.
especially that period, like Blizzard of Oz period, was great.
Yes.
But like as time has gone on, I think it's just like the more missteps that he's done over like maybe the last 25 years, not missteps, but just kind of weaker output, and
Yeah.
you just kind of like,
A
yeah.
little sour on it.
For me, it was thrash. I mean, once I heard thrash, it just like made
Right.
everything else sound suddenly really weak. Like that was grandma's heavy metal. I'm not in, you know what I mean? Slayer is where it's,
Speaking of grandma, King Diamond. I'm sorry.
There you go.
He said grandma. I think King Diamond. I can't help it. I don't.
How do you get
The way
my
grandma
brain
out of King Diamond?
From them.
High falsetto,
There you go.
Abigail.
Ah, there you go.
Big
All right,
album, them.
Pete, what's your number 4?
Sorry.
My number 4.
Let's
So
get this
apparently-
train going, folks.
Yeah, I didn't learn my lesson with the double album, so I asked my father to go pick up a triple album from J&R Music, and I gave him like $7.99, and he came back and was like, "No, that's not $7.99. This one was $9.99." I'm like, "Why?" Because Wings Over America, Paul McCartney Wings, is a triple album, not a double album.
Oh
great album.
shit.
Oh, that is
So
great.
yeah, so
That's
3
classic,
albums
man. I love that,
are better
yeah.
than 2. So for that, an extra $2 is needed. You're gonna have to wait a couple weeks until you save up your allowance money.
Oh,
And I did.
man.
And it became one of my favorite live albums of all time. So Wings
Nice.
Over America,
That's
one of the
Yeah.
great.
purchased in 1977 after it had already been out for a little bit, because of course they went on this tour in 1976 celebrating the bicentennial. So that's my next selection. Back to Lynn for the finale, number 1.
All right, my finale is back to the roller skating rink where we all used to sing Journey. So my record that I had to go out and buy, it was Journey Escape. So Don't Stop Believing, Stone in Love, Keep on Running, Still They Ride, and Who's Crying Now. So love those. I love those songs. I love Journey. I mean, I feel anybody that grew up in that era, I feel like it's a staple of our childhood,
Totally. I'm
Yeah.
never embarrassed to admit that I'm a huge Journey fan. And Neil Sean,
No,
Me
love
especially,
neither.
but,
Me neither.
Neil
But-
Sean's
but-
fucking amazing. I think he's
Yeah.
great.
but Escape and Frontiers and even Raised on Radio, I kind of like a lot, which
Yeah.
is more of a Steve Perry album. But
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the earlier Journey stuff. I like it, but the Escape is a great
Yeah.
album.
But this record, again, it's another thing. You grab the microphone or the hairbrush, as I used to, and I thought I was Steve Perry for a minute or two, and I still do.
The classic, I agree.
It's fucking awesome.
All right, Grant, your final pick.
Okay, so this one's got a tiny story. I'm going to rush this through. So and Pete, you may be able to help me. I wish Steve Keeler was here because he could really set the record straight. So back in the early '80s, and you guys probably know Johnny Z from Megaforce, right? He has a store Rock and Roll Heaven in Jersey, but for some reason, I believe this. It is definitely true, and I think I did like research on this like about 10, 15 years ago. He also, for a short period of time, had a record store in Warwick, New York,
Yes,
called
he
Rock
did.
and Roll Heaven too.
Yep.
He
Yeah.
did.
And yes, he
I
did.
didn't know that.
I don't know if
I
he
didn't know that.
vacationed there or whatever the case was, but that was my like that is the day that place opened. I was there at least twice a week, and from then on, I spent every last cent I could conjure up. And the first album I bought there was an album I heard that Sunday before on syndicated radio show program WPDH Metal Shop with Charlie Kendall.
Nice. That was killer.
Only show with teeth.
Exactly.
Love
The only
that.
show with teeth. Exactly. And
Love that.
I heard Anvil for the first time, and I bought Forged in Fire. And I was like, oh, this is like crazy Canadian thrash, right? And I bought it. And it was weird because again, I would sometimes buy an album because the music was cool, but if it had really cool sound effects in it, oh, there you go.
I was listening to it like 2 hours ago.
Right. So what's the song? Is it Future Wars or there was Future Wars or Winged Assassins where it had like the sound effects of the jets going over?
I think it was
like
Future War.
Future Wars. So I'd heard that in the store as well, and I was like, I had to get that album. And then I remember listening to it at home, and I didn't love it as much. I was like, yeah, I like this, but this is not, because at that point I had Pyromania. I was already listening to on the radio Judas Priest, and it just seemed sort of empty. And then, so it's so funny because my wife and I went to go see Anvil the movie, and I'm not taking anything away from them. I'm seriously not. But if you've seen Anvil the movie, it's a great movie. It brought me to tears. But there's like a whole section of that of people that were like, we toured with Anvil and like they influenced us so much and this and that, and they just influenced us. And again, I'm not taking anything away from them, but Anvil, if they were on any festival or any tour, they literally opened at like 10 a.m. Like they were not a big band at all, And when you have Slash, is like, oh yeah, Guns N' Roses wouldn't have happened without Anvil. It was like, I was like, my wife was like, is that true? I said, no, not at all. They're being really polite, I thought. But hey, the great band though. Those albums. I think I bought Metal on Metal right after that. Which is,
two best
did
ones.
that come out after?
No, this was
Right before. Yeah. But
Rock and Roll Heaven. Rock and Roll Heaven.
Rock and Roll Heaven.
Yeah,
and how
I
long was that
remember
open for? About a year?
It
I
only
think?
stayed open like
Not long.
about a year. Yeah, not long at
Not
all.
long at all.
I spent
Wake up, Sydney. Wake up.
I mowed probably
I
about
will
1,000
say.
lawns, and I think I bought probably about 100 records in that place. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And they're all gone.
I'm not yawning because your story is boring. I'm yawning because I went to work today and I'm tired.
I'm kidding. I'm
Hey,
kidding.
Win.
We got the Monday Night Blues. We all got the olds.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? I want to put my pajamas on and throw a fucking Hallmark movie on right now.
Well, we're getting there soon. We're getting there. All right, Ryan, what do you got?
I actually walked by today where that store used to be. I was in Warwick today, but yeah, it's a long gone. But
Right there on the
yeah.
corner.
So
Right in the corner.
right there on the corner, yeah, on South Street in Warwick. So the fifth,
Yes.
even though this was my idea for this topic, when I actually sat down to think about it, I could only narrow it down to like 10 albums. And I'm like, what order did I buy these in? So the first two were very obvious. By the time I got to 4 and 5, I'm like, man, I'm like really stretching. So I'm 82% sure this is the fifth album I bought. I was struggling, but it's a great album. So there was a kid in my class, and I think it was whatever grade it was, that was a drummer, and he was the only kid I knew that his parents bought him a drum kit, and he was the only guy I knew at the time that played drums, and he was raving about this band from Brooklyn who had an amazing drummer. And I agree. I've seen them. Well, it's actually the band I've seen the most, somewhere between 50 and 60 times. And of all the bands I've ever seen, their original drummer is the greatest live drummer I've ever seen. The guy was just beyond, like, he's not even human. So the band was Candiria, and the album was their second album, Beyond Reasonable Doubt. And they were this was good for me because they were a New York hardcore band, but on the same album that they would have hardcore songs, they had a straight up 100% hip hop track. They had straight up like old school bebop jazz. They had like weird instrumental like proggy stuff. So they mixed all kinds of stuff in there. And they didn't splice it together. Like the hip hop song was an isolated song, the jazz stuff was an isolated track, and then like the hardcore and metal was separate too. So they really were like a diverse band. Every time I saw them live, though, they only did the heavy stuff. The other stuff was only for the albums. But their old drummer Ken Schlack, there's videos of him on YouTube. This dude is just I don't know. He plays like almost like a Neil Peart level of skill, but like Dave Lombardo like intensity, like arms flying, hair flying, cymbals blasting, and it's not in a big theater. These are hardcore shows, so you're the set's packed in the corner of gymnasium, little tiny jazz kit, like Buddy Rich style, and people are like moshing like right up on the kit because that's just how hardcore shows were, and this dude's just going to fucking town putting the work in. So I
That's
picked this
sweet.
album up. Yeah, this dude, unfortunately he's not with them anymore. They broke up for a couple of years. I hope they were in a bad accident. Some of them were injured. So all this shit went down. They are back together. They're still playing. The current drummer is great. But man, I have memories of watching them play back then. The pits were just insane. I saw tons and tons of cool bands as opening for them. And they're one of those bands, like they didn't really tour much. They just played all the time. They play everywhere. If you had a party at your house, they play that. They just played everywhere. I saw them at the Chance a whole bunch of times. They played the Chance with anybody, Agnostic Front, All At War, Biohazard, all those bands. So they just weren't in those bands. They didn't care. They just would play to play. So yeah, a lot of good memories of that. A lot of good memories watching that dude just annihilate that kid. But yeah, Candiria was the album for me, Beyond Reasonable Doubt, from a '97. And I was really trying to figure out how many times. So like you see Iron Maiden, you see Slayer, it's in a big theater, you have a ticket stub, you can kind of like keep an official record of like, oh, I saw Iron Maiden, in here, in Jersey, I saw Madison Square Garden. But a band like this, you're like, wow, I saw him at some dude's house in Middletown. I saw him in Brooklyn, but the venue's not there anymore because it was like just a fucking warehouse. So I have no idea how many times I really saw them, but it's at least 50. I'm going to say at least 50 because I used to see them, I don't know, 20 times a year back then, where they were just like constantly, what are you doing this weekend?
Nice.
We're going to see Candiria in like the skate park in Newburgh. We see them all the time. So yeah, just one of those deals back then. But yeah, even if you're not really into hardcore, because it's not old school, it's not like Black Flag kind of hardcore. It's 90s style. It's newer, but it's such a cool band. Nobody really sounds like them. They had that real like staccato, almost like a Fear Factory, Meshuggah style guitar playing, like real off kilter. And that's the closest comparison I can make because they are such a unique band. But yeah, their second album was just amazing. So
Nice. You had me at drums.
Oh,
You had me at drums.
I have fond memories of watching this dude play drums, and he was just soaked in sweat, no shirt on, just playing his kit like it owed him like $1 million. But very precise too. Like his favorite style was jazz, and the jazz tracks on their albums were his doing. He's
like Dave Weckl gone mad.
Yeah, it's like Dave Weckl, like hulked up, but people like moshing on top of the kit, and he doesn't pay, not a care in the world, just playing away. But yeah, man, I have good memories of that. So going with Candiria.
And Nick's pick?
Nick's pick was Anthrax, Among the Living. Speaking of, wait, I was about to say Megaforce Records, but were they still on Megaforce by the time I got to Among the Living, or were they on a major label by then?
They got signed by then. I think
spreading disease. I think it still was.
I think
still
so.
had the Megaforce label on there.
Wasn't it still Megaforce? Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
But it was through a major. I think that was
distribution was through major. Yeah, Atlantic maybe.
Island Records, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was Island. That was the
Island.
one that really blew them up. That was like the one that got them like, all right, everybody knows Anthrax now. So yeah, it was Among the Living by Anthrax.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Cans.
All right, I went from my last one was Led Zeppelin 2, and then my fifth album I went out and bought Led Zeppelin 3. It was kind of mind blowing. It was a very different album from Led Zeppelin 2.
Yeah.
And having been somebody who bought 8 million Kiss albums, I immediately, picked up on that picture wheel that came in the front. I pulled that out, slapped it on the turntable. I'm like, oh, it's another record. It wasn't. It's a piece of cardboard. So then I was like, I had it on the turntable. I'm like, what are you supposed to do with this? I bet you're supposed to take LSD and stare at this fucking thing. But, I was in 6th grade, so. And I hadn't met Pete Pardo yet, so I couldn't get the good drugs. So.
I need to know that story.
That's
Pete
a
Pardo.
joke. That's a joke. But yeah, I realized you could leave it in the sleeve and turn it because there were little holes in all the front of the album where you could look through at the pictures and stuff. So, great album. Great album.
At the time, I was mortified. I'm like, what are all these acoustic songs, man? I want my money back. Now I'm like, oh, it's such a great album. But yeah,
I had a guy in class who kept talking about Gallows Pole like it was the most kick-ass song ever. Fucking Gallows Pole, bro! You gotta check this shit out. So we talked in 1980. And I get it, and it's like this acoustic tune. I'm like, this doesn't kick it, you know, but whatever. It's great. It's great.
Now it is. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I forced myself to like it back then. I mean, at that time, I owned 5 records. You know, it's like, I'm going to listen to this one. It's new.
But it had immigrant song on it, so that gave it instant.
That's right. Yeah.
I always liked Out on the Tiles. So I thought that was a kick.
Out on the Tiles is heavy
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Really cool.
Yeah.
All right, Chris Allo.
Weird though. I just wanted to say it's weird, you know, with the younger guys. I'm like, yeah, I bought all those albums too, but that was like my fucking 50th album. You know, like I have better memories of like Number of the Beast than I do of any of these albums.
Yeah,
But,
well, yeah.
oh well. All right, I'm done.
Okay, yeah, I fucked up the order of the last 2, but it doesn't matter. This was my 4th record, I guess.
Really?
This was
That's
the first
wow.
rock record, but I guess it was like 1979.
That's a
Wow.
great album. What's wrong with that?
That is a good album.
That was a really good
I
record.
love
yeah.
Blondie.
I seen him a couple times.
I'm amazed. The guy who never owned Rumors, he's got Blondie.
Really?
Very cool.
I got,
Of course, he's got 2 copies of it.
I got on CD too, so I have 3 copies.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah.
Right.
cool.
Wow. We see a new side to Chris Allo. Superman, Star
I
Wars.
like
Don't,
Blondie.
don't tell anybody now.
I like this side
The
of
whole
Chris Al.
world
Let's
is
see
watching,
more.
my friend.
Hey, listen, Lamb Chop of God went from 850 views to 3,500.
See that? The
That's all
power
I
of this
knew.
show. Did you read
Such
those
a side of
comments?
Sears.
Did you
Oh,
read
yeah.
those?
Like,
Like
all the
200
comments are
people,
like,
like, I'm here because of Chris Allo and Sea of Tranquility.
That's right.
and the guys are probably like, what the
Oh, yeah, I'm still waiting for a fucking thank you, Lamb Chop of God.
Yeah.
I'll give you my address to send that gold record.
The check's in the mail. Don't worry.
Of course.
There were like 5 comments, and all of a sudden there's all these comments, and someone's like,
Yeah,
"Oh, so
it's
happy
so
to see
funny.
the Tranquility people here." It's like, yeah, hell yeah. That was great. It's a really good song too.
Should
It
at
is.
least send you a pair of socks.
I watched it a couple times in the last week. It still cracks me up, even though I can't how many times I've seen it.
It's fucking hilarious.
It's like the Muppets or Sesame Street.
Oh, yeah.
Hilarious. Yeah, it's so cool. Lamb Chop of God.
That's
All right,
it.
Sydney, what do you got for your final pick of the day?
All right, my last one is yet again another Alice Cooper record, but I got this one at Rhino Records. And so what's cool about this one is that I don't listen to it very often because I'm not a big fan of the first 2 Alice Cooper records. Some people are. They just didn't find their sound yet, so I'm not the biggest fan. But I was in New Paltz at Rhino Records, and I came across this, and it's a compilation album that is apparently very rare. And it's the first 2 Alice Cooper records, and it came out in '73. And at first, I bought it without even really knowing what was on it already, because I was like, this is cool. It's just the cover and everything. And then the inside actually opens into an interview. It has an interview on the bottom. And it's him with the chicken at the Toronto Music Festival. And it's just a really cool kind of collector's piece. Like I said, I was very into, and still am. I'm still on the hunt for a bunch of them. Have had most of his major catalog, in originals. I'm still on the hunt for a couple, like, rares and bootlegs there. But I was just picking up everything that I could find and bought everything that I came across. So yeah, this was the 5th one that I bought. Like I said, per me
Pretty cool.
remembering
I've
correctly.
never seen that before.
No, I never saw it either.
No.
Yeah, it's
Cool.
called
Oh,
it's
awesome.
called School Days, and Alice Cooper, the early recordings, and
Yeah, those first 2 albums are really weird.
yeah, they're really, they, some people say that they, like them, and I'm like, it definitely has its audience. It's very, it's late 60s, like very, trippy kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
it's just, they didn't really find their sound yet. They hadn't met Bob Ezrin yet. They, obviously these 2 albums are what got them noticed. Well, the sound is what got them noticed by Frank Zappa, and those 2 records are put out under Frank Zappa's label, so it makes sense as to why they were so weird under his direction. So but yeah, no, it's super cool. Like I said, I don't pull it out too much to play it, but I'm really happy I have it in my collection.
Is
So,
that an original on Bizarre Records?
yeah. Or is it?
Wow.
That's not Bizarre. It's not. No, I don't think it's Bizarre Records. But it is an original. It's It's Warner Brothers, unfortunately.
Oh, so that was probably like a vinyl reissue of the first two albums because they were out
Yeah.
of print at the time. So yeah, that's pretty
Yes.
cool. I've never seen that, never even heard of it.
Yeah, it's a
No.
compilation. I hadn't either before I saw it, and
Yeah, cool cover.
apparently it's not. Yeah.
Pretty neat.
Yeah.
That was a good find. Good find.
Yeah.
All right, Spaghetti, what's your final pick of the day?
All right. So the very first record I ever bought with my own money, there's a story. It's a little embarrassing and it's kind of heartbreaking. But
A little
I
bit,
had me a crush on a girl down the block that was a couple of years older than me. And I thought if she knew that I bought this record, I'd be an in for sure. So I went out and I bought myself Supertramp Breakfast in America. This was
Nice.
a really successful record, very popular at the time. And I saw her singing along on the jam box at the pool to like take the long way home. And I go, oh, she likes that stuff. So maybe I should go buy it. And I did. And I didn't get the girl, but I did get the record. And I still think this is a super, really cool album. I think it's aged really well. I listened to it today, regardless of the clarinet solo on there. I like it. I just really love this record. And for sentimental reasons, of course, it's just, it has a, you know, there's a place in my heart for it. It was the first record I ever bought with my own money. Walked down to the store. It was a department store. It wasn't Caldors. It was actually called TSS, Times Square Stores in Levittown, New York. And I bought this when I was 10 years old. This was a really successful record. Actually, I looked it up and won 2 Grammys, one for packaging, best original packaging and engineering, which surprised me. I knew it was popular. I didn't think it won some Grammys, but it won 2.
Great album.
It's a great.
Yeah.
I'm a
Really
huge
good
Supertramp fan, and that's my favorite Supertramp album.
Oh, it's
Logical
so good.
Song, Breakfast
So
in
good.
America.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, to me, Supertramp's peak. Like they had, you know,
Commercial peak, for sure.
74. Yeah, but even their songwriting too, and I don't know if anyone knows a lot about Roger Hodgkins and just the song, like them just as a songwriting pair, but at that point they were really getting on each other's nerves. But it's a brilliant album. It really
They were
is.
never the same after that album. Yeah.
No, it went downhill. Yeah, it was. Yeah, so
good pick. Well, you bought the album, didn't get the girl, but you kept the album. There you go.
That's all right. I'm probably better off that way.
Yeah, you probably are.
The way life works out.
She denied me at the roller rink, Lynn. She didn't want to
Damn
do
her.
couples
What's wrong
only
with
now.
her?
Oh,
Denying a guy that skates. What?
really?
Worked out for the best. Worked out for the best.
Remember the Jordache jeans and the whole.
Oh, come on.
Oh yeah,
Sergio Valente,
Sweetors.
Jordache, come on.
All right, so we talked in my final pick of the day. We talked about how I was not learning my lesson with the price of albums back in the day. So the moral of the story is Pete eventually learns the way to go about doing things, right? So I actually decided to go with Dad to J&R Music World in New York City to go look for albums. And I made sure I had enough money. And of course, I was always drawn to these double albums. So I saw, I love like science fiction and horror and fantasy and spaceships and all that kind of stuff. So I see this giant spaceship, ELO, Electric Light Orchestra, Add the Blue, sitting in the rack. I'm like, I love it. That's gorgeous. Got to have it. How much is it? Oh, $7.99. I have $10 on me. I can buy it. I'm going to buy it, and I'll go home with a couple extra bucks. Brought it home, loved it, still love it to this day. And that was the 5th album I ever bought with my
Fantastic.
own. So
Nice.
That surprises me, but that's a great album. I mean, awesome album.
And it's one of the best sounding albums I've ever heard in my life. It's just sonically speaking, just amazing.
Even though he wants to go, he's gone back and remastered some of that stuff to make it sound even better. He didn't like the way a lot of it. He said he didn't like the way a lot of it sounds.
I don't know. It sounds pretty damn good to me. I don't know how much
for the time of release, it's really good production. I mean, really amazing production.
And it came with a poster and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's the gatefold. It was just awesome.
Pete, was that the J&R Music World all the way downtown, like Park Road there by City Hall? Oh yeah, that stayed open for a while.
Up until I think about a decade or 15 years ago. Something like that.
It closed in I want to say 2008. I used to, me and Pete worked together at a book publisher. Actually, it was one of my accounts. I actually had to sell books into there.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. It was great. It was a great
little story
back in its heyday. Oh, man.
Yeah.
Oh, it was great.
Everything. The prices were amazing. Like the prices were really good and they carried everything. But as we all know, that all changed. Physical media down the shitter. So anyway, there you have it, everybody. Our first 5 album albums that we acquired. We've seen some hard rock, some metal, some movie soundtracks, some all sorts of fun stuff. So if you haven't heard any of these classics, well, you probably should go out and do so. So I want to thank everybody for bringing their stories and their picks today. Visit us on the web at www.seaoftranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. For everybody watching, next Monday will be our holiday extravaganza. We'll have folks from the Hudson Valley Squares and then the Prague seat and the guitarist corner, all walks of life on Sea of Tranquility on a Zoom together, all microscopic looking here to wish everybody a happy holidays, and everybody's going to quickly tell their favorite moment on Sea of Tranquility. So that's going to be next Monday night at the usual time of the Hudson Valley Squares. So please tune in. That'll be fun to say hi to everybody and have us all appear on one screen together and wish you all happy holidays. So for Lynn Versace, Grant Kickert, Ryan Scow, and Nick Franco, and Butch Jones, and Stephen Keeler, and Chris Canzaneri, Chris Allo, Sydney Taylor, and Spaghetti Lee, I am Pete Pardo. Good night, everybody. Have a good week. Take care.